The meeting is now recording.
Very good. So welcome everybody, and thank you for attending. We've got Gary and we've got Phil in attendance. And so I just want to before we the meeting is adjourning. I'm sorry, the meeting is starting at 3:03, and I want to just acknowledge that Sandra, thank you for sending out the budget process, as well as the budget timeline, which is very useful information. And absent of an agenda, I suppose we're going to go through these documents here and kind of lay out our process for delivery.
Absolutely. So the agenda did get posted and was emailed, I think, sometime late last week. My apologies.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, you're fine. And the first item on the agenda was you're welcome. And the next was a review from staff of the budget direction that we received for fiscal year 24. So Sandra, I'll invite you to chat a little bit about what we received from the county's Department in Management and Budget.
Okay, so we pretty much received the budget process, which pretty much stated that agencies will need to go ahead and submit their budget submissions, and that will include their narrative, that would include personnel, and it will also include any type of position. If we decide to submit any kind of formal request, we will need to utilize the documentation that is provided by DMB to submit those requests. And other than that, the agency has just kind of, DMB has just kind of told us to move forward. We're trying to get everything submitted to them on a timely submission. So the goal for us was to submit our budget right after your October meeting, after it kind of gets presented to the board.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. So I was going to say the only real budget guidance that we received beyond just the general documentation that we have to fill out is that agencies are directed to submit a flat budget again. There is no projected cuts to agencies. There are no projected increases by every agency. And this is the first year that the county budget process is aligning more closely with the countywide strategic plan. So as Sandra and her staff are developing the budget, if there is anything that this board is requesting be additionally funded, staff have to align it with one of the 10 key outcome areas from the strategic plan, of which we have a number that we align with, including cultural and recreational opportunities, education and lifelong learning, efficient and effective government are usually the three that we tend to tie into. So what you have today for discussion is the draft cover letter that goes along with the spreadsheets that staff have to submit in the county's budgeting system. And staff do definitely have some recommendations about that. And I will go ahead and share my screen.
But before we start that, can I ask you a question about the guidance?
Sure.
They have more money this year because of the higher assessments and so forth. And you said that all agencies were asked to send a flat budget?
Yes, the way that the county is looking at utilizing those increases are for specific projects and programs that align with strategic planning initiatives. So instead of saying every agency may see a 3% increase that you could then utilize, you should be submitting a flat budget, and then you should tag in items that if an addition were funded, what would they be and how do they align with strategic planning areas? So one area that we know the Board of Supervisors is very invested in is affordable housing. I would say that it's very likely that the Department of Housing and Community Development will document and submit additional budget requests for additional affordable housing units. So while we all submit a generally flat budget, we can request additional things. It's just not a guarantee that every agency is going to get them, depending on what board priorities are. It's also, oh, I'm sorry, Gary, I didn't mean to cut in.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
so you're saying last year, these recommendations we made with the full knowledge that they weren't going anywhere. So are you saying that there is a chance this year that they could go somewhere?
Maybe, I think maybe is always our best answer. Sandra, you go ahead and I'm gonna find the actual budget submittal guidelines so I can share that as well. If Sandra wants to.
So we did meet with our budget analysts sometime last week, and I think some of the guidance that they provided us was to perhaps keep some of the things that we requested last year kind of in the forefront, that as far as the submission, but it doesn't, I think what Jessica is saying, it may not get approved based upon, the board priorities and how they plan on funding things this year. But we definitely want to keep those things on the highlight as far as the expanded hours and as far as the position and the things that we put forward last year that did not get approved.
Yeah,
For
the vibe,
clarification, who requested the flat budget? Is that DMB? Is that, okay, all right.
yeah, and it's less of a request for a flat budget and more of a requirement for our submission. Yeah, because we are a general fund agency, we don't receive the majority of our dollars from outside of the county's coffers. We are given instructions about what our budget framework is and how much money from the general fund will be coming to the agency, and then we have to match up to that. To Gary's earlier question as well, I think that there is a better chance this year about funding some of the additional requests, but we would have to make both a very good pitch in the letter and the submittal documentation that staff go along with it, and to our elected officials in advance of the budget being approved. There are, as you know, thousands of priorities across the county for a variety of different things. And one of the biggest areas that is likely to take up space and time and energy is the county's collective bargaining efforts. The county approved a collective bargaining ordinance last year. And at least as far as I am aware, there is one employee group that has met the threshold to have a vote to see if they will become the elected representatives, and that's within the fire department. General county government, as far as I am aware, has not reached any of those signatory thresholds. You have to get 20% of eligible employees to sign off on a petition. But the county is definitely keeping an eye towards that. There's an anticipation that with any kind of collective bargaining effort, there might be a shift in how additional funding is allocated based on however those bargaining agreements are drafted and come to fruition. So while it looks like there is going to be extra money based off of the increased in valuations, both for personal property and housing, it may get kind of pulled into different areas. So we'll have to make a really compelling case about why library priorities tie in to other countywide priorities. I didn't find the direct budget guidance, but I will email that to you all as well. It is many, many pages of submit this document, and here's when we're going to have timelines for. But I will share my screen so that we can look at the draft budget memo that Sandra and I Sandra wrote, and I made some very marginal changes to. This is your document. You are welcome to make any adds, edit, changes, anything that you want. And can everyone see that screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna oomph up the size of it a little bit. So as you can see in the first paragraph, the library's budget submission will be for a little under 33 million. And I know you are all aware of this, but just in case anyone is watching this later, that does not include library employee benefits or retirement. That money comes out of a different county budget. So this is just library direct expenditures. The people part of that, so it's our staff wages, overtime, and other miscellaneous employee funds is 26 million, and operating budget, which includes our book budget, databases, contracts, IT, all those kinds of things, is about 6.75. We also note in here that as per our budget guidance, it is a flat budget. However, if there is additional funding available, the library is requesting these items. In prior years' budgets, the last 2 or 3, I believe, the first item in this list was always the additional hours, because that had been a priority of the board. It was something that we wanted to push forward, and it is pretty critically important to ensuring equitable access in our facilities. However, this year, staff, Sandra and myself and our leadership team do not recommend that that is the first item that you include. It is a little bit further in, and I'll speak to that a little bit more later. The first item that we recommend including is additional dollars towards the collection development budgets. Throughout the pandemic, and now as we are in the more endemic state, we've seen a huge increase in the number of users of our digital materials. And in fact, if you use our e-materials, you have likely noticed that it takes a very, very, very long time to get some of them to you. That is because we do not have enough money to meet the needs of all of our consumers. Sandra and I are no exception. We are all on hold for things and have 6-month plus waits, just like anyone else. Our collection staff do an amazing job of trying to finesse the budget that we have, but there's an always expanding pocket and pool of things that are needed to serve the community. It's physical books, it's digital books, it's books and it's audiobooks, it's kids and adults and young adults. And as we continue to grow out of the pandemic, right now, our circulation of physical materials is not as high as it was pre-pandemic. It is certainly a little bit lower, but our circulation of digital materials has skyrocketed. We anticipate that in the next several years, the use of physical materials is going to come back to a level that we saw pre-pandemic, and the digital material usage is going to continue to increase. So the problem is only going to compound itself. And of course, if you are a new library user and you come in hoping that you're going to be able to easily pick up some materials, and the first thing you get is, I'm sorry, you have to wait 2 years to get that item. That is not exactly what we are hoping to use to lure new people into library services. So staff recommend that at least somewhere in the top of the list is an expansion of the collection development budget. Many thanks to Sandra and her staff. Many of the dollars that come as fallout from the personnel budget when we have vacancies and those dollars aren't used towards staff salaries in the last 2 years have been funneled directly back into the collection budget, which has certainly helped in the short term. But in the long term, we typically only start the fiscal year with about 10% of our budget going towards collections when it should, per your policy, be closer to 20%. So that's staff's first recommendation. Would you like me to go through each of the items, or do you want to discuss them one by one?
I ask one question, Jessica. Should we, like in doing this, like put a dollar amount, if we got to 20%, it would be X dollars, or maybe that's covered somewhere in some other document.
It is not, and that is a great question for your discussion and potential implementation. We didn't do that last year because the number was really big, and we were worried that if we put a really big number in there, none of it would be funded. So last year we left it pretty vague that any additional dollars would be appreciated. If we were to say that 20% of our total expenditures are going towards the collections budget, then we would be saying that they need to give us about an additional $3.2 million, which is probably pretty unlikely, even with the additional funding that the county budget may see in the coming fiscal year. So we could certainly include whatever you all would like there. We just don't want to scare them off with a really big number to start with.
I got a follow-up question for to Phil's, and I have wrote it down, so I was going to ask it later, but who is making the considerations? And this goes into his question, like, how do we appeal to them? Who is making the decision on the use of the additional funding? Is it a committee at DMB? Does it go to the county supervisors? Who does that, and then when, I guess?
Mm-hmm. Excellent question. Sandra, I'll start, and please feel free to correct me if I misstate anything. When agencies submit our budget, so our budget will be submitted the day after your October board meeting. So it's October 13th or 14th. County Department of Management and Budget receives all of the agency's budgets, usually September, October-ish. And then they take October, November, probably part of December to try and look at all those asks, meet with departments again if they have questions, and figure out how it could all fit into the dollars that are available. And if not, they set aside items beyond what's flat. That then goes to the county executive, and he and his team of deputy county executives finesse the budget from there with things that they incorporate into the advertised budget as potential additions, and things that maybe do not get included from there. That is all done at a staff level. And that is what comprises the advertised budget that the county executive submits to the Board of Supervisors in late February. That budget is just a draft. It is a recommendation, and it's an opportunity for the elected officials to then see what staff have preliminarily included and what has been preliminarily excluded from the budget for the coming fiscal year. So there's two places that there's opportunities for feedback. The first is now with our elected officials as we are submitting requests. So we can always say, you know, the library's wait list for popular materials is 6 months to 2 years. And that is one outlier item, but there are definitely items that have that long a wait list. We are submitting this type of request. Please support it when you see it. And then there is the opportunity between when the advertised budget comes out in late February and when the budget is adopted towards May for direct appeals to elected officials, both at their budget town halls locally and through the public budget hearings in the government center to do a public statement to the full board beyond just your local elected official. So those are the two main touch points.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, of course. And I'm sorry, that was probably a very long-winded way of saying there's lots of times to talk about it and lots of different people who are looking at it. So the second item that staff are requesting is a continuation of a request from the last 2 years as well. And it's one that I think we might have a little bit of additional support for. So as with prior years, the library is requesting one new full-time position. It is not a big ask, and it is not a lot of FTEs or dollars. It's about $80,000, but it is a much needed position that staff have identified. We operate 23 public service locations, like you all know, and we are not social workers. We are not behavioral health specialists. That is not the role that we play in the county. However, because we're an open public space, anyone is welcome. And we do have incidents that occur in our facilities that could use a more direct touch with people who are engaged in that work. We have great partnerships with other agencies who can help us after the fact, but having someone embedded in the library to help us craft policies and processes that are more realistic to the types of users that we see coming in that might have behavioral challenges or mental health service needs would be incredibly helpful. You all get copies as part of your board packets of our incident reports in our facilities. So I think you probably have a pretty good idea of why this is a necessary position. When Sandra and I spoke with our budget analysts 2 weeks ago, last week, this is the one that we highlighted as probably the easiest to pick of the three because the cost is so low, but would have a dramatic impact on staff for the library.
And I think we have enough justification within our incidents report to really support this request because it's really getting horrible to read them.
So Sandra, to that point though, the person that's reading this paragraph does not see what you and I have seen in the library. So how do we, and this goes to Phil's point again, do we have to put a sentence in there that says that, you know, there were this many incidents in the past, 12 months, or do you guys have a full opportunity to explain number two?
Both, I think.
Yeah.
So Sandra and I, when we put in additional requests, we have to justify them. This is the cover letter, and we have to justify them budgetarily, operationally, personnel wise. So there is definitely an opportunity to expand on the staff side, but it is not something that the elected officials would see at that point. So this, I think that is a great idea to add in a sentence about, FCPL has seen XX incidents in the last fiscal year.
And maybe add some of the nature of some of them, if we really want to highlight how.
If you can characterize it in major incidents or, incidents that required something that it would explain that they're not just people, spitting on the floor.
Right.
Okay,
I ask a question, Jessica.
of course.
I'm not speaking against this, but the question would be, when these incidents happen, something is happening at the Pohick Library right now. this person isn't going to be involved, as we're saying it, it's, to interact with the library patrons, but these incidents are happening and this person isn't, in my opinion, going to be there to interact or address the situation. So
Yes.
like kind of exactly what are they going to do?
That is another excellent question, and I would be happy to expand on that because I recently updated the justification for this. So there are a couple of different facets that we would like a position like this to handle. The first would be developing library-specific training in support of our branch-based staff for how to support and interact with individuals who are having these types of situations that create the incidents that we report. Our staff do get training on this from colleague agencies, and we have support from like the Community Services Board and Department of Family Services. However, they are not intimately involved in our operations. Someone embedded would have a better stance on the type of training staff need. To your specific point about people on site, part of the goal with this position is to collaborate with local universities and put together an internship program. We would love to be able to have social work students in some of our facilities that have more incidents. And to do that, we have to have a social worker or a behavioral health specialist on staff that can be their, I don't know what the specific term is, coach, mentor, whatever, so that they can sign off that they are assisting them through this process of a learning opportunity. And that is a model that we've gotten initial support from at the county executive's office level. So those are the two kind of main pieces that we're looking at for this beyond helping us with policies, processes, and procedures. This person themselves would not be on site in a branch every day, but we would be asking them to do field work and do site assessments if we see continuing issues of specific natures at different locations. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, the thing that I would, maybe suggest is put a little bit more of some of the things that you said, because like, assume I were against this, then I would say, this person isn't going to be there every time there's an incident. So like, what do you need them for? But, the idea that you said they would do some training, they would develop some, training for the staff. You could intervene with the, possibly George Mason and Nova and have students in training. I mean, this thing could become well, I think I covered what I'm trying to say, to take out anybody that would have a opposition to it.
Sure, that's a great idea.
Like you said, more of why we think we need this.
And I
I
think
added
that
in a sentence about that.
I was going to add that, this person, like Jessica said, would provide that clinical supervisions for those interns. And I think this person may also be able to provide some support to our own staff, because they are the ones who are being impacted by the things that are happening at the branch. And some of the things that we read about, I mean, we want to make sure that we are emotionally supporting our staff at all times. So I think that would also be a role for this person as she floats around the various branches that have the higher cases.
Yeah. So Phil, I drafted a sentence and added it in about the two prongs of work that this position, if approved and added, would be doing, so that there is more clarity here and not just in the backup justification document. Thank you. That's a great point. We have tried to be pithy in this most of the time because we know how many of these types of documents come across people's tables. However, it has not gotten people's attention in the last 2 years, so we might as well try being more clear about why this is so necessary. Thank you.
For the record, when I seen this, from my experience, recent experience at Byrd Library, where you have people with mental health issues that keep returning, and we're asking the librarian and the manager to be healthcare specialists or something. I don't know, but if you have like a repeat person that's attending, I would think that somebody like this person would be able to come out and help intervene because of the consistency. So I know that that's frustrating too.
Yeah, we have amazing staff in all of our branches, tech ops, administration, and their jobs are library based. And while our libraries are open to the public, our staff are not trained social workers, nor would we expect them to be, nor are they paid to be. So we want to make sure that they are able to work within the scope of their job and get the support that they need. And I don't say that to diminish the help that we receive from county security, from the police force, from community services board, because they're all excellent, but they're not on site all the time because that's not their job either.
Mhm.
So that is the second item the staff put in here. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, we did include language about the original budget submission for funding. However, we added some language at the bottom that due to current high levels of position vacancies and ongoing turnover, FCPL does not have adequate support staff to support this request, but will revisit it later when staffing levels return to post-pandemic levels. In Sandra and our discussion with our colleagues in DMB, they recommended that even if we're not asking for the money now, that we include language in here so that it doesn't slip from people's minds that this is still a priority of the board and of the community. I could not in good conscience ask for additional funding in the coming fiscal year for additional hours. I do not know when we will get back to a place where we can even get back to our current normal hours. And if I were a betting person, I would say that we are still many recruitment cycles out from that place. We are continuing to bring on board new employees, but we also continue to offboard people as they leave for other jurisdictions, as they enter retirement, or as they choose to exit the workforce. I do not have a high level of confidence that we will be in a position where we could utilize the additional staff to expand those hours. So we recommend keeping language in here, but not actually requesting for it this year because I don't think we'd be able to staff it. So
May
those
I
are the 3 areas that staff recommends. Yeah, absolutely.
Again, I'm not being critical, but if I'm not going to ask for any money, then I don't particularly see any reason why it's there. And I would like to see us asking for something that we need. It's nice that you spell it out, but theoretically, who cares? Okay, if we're not asking for money, and we could use money. So my suggestion would be to eliminate that and other things that the staff might think where we could ask, because we ask for things and you get some things. Okay, so if we're going to have 3 requests, I'd like to have something more. We need money for this particular project.
Sure. So part of the reason that staff continued to include it as a budget ask is at the urging of our analysts with the Department of Management and Budget, specifically so that it, 1, doesn't fall off of our elected officials' radar, but 2, so that it can continue to be assessed for inclusion in the multi-year budget plan. The county, while it does single-year budgeting, also has a multi-year budget document where they incorporate things that may need to be considered in future budget years. So we could certainly amend this so that instead of its own 3rd bullet in the queue, that instead it's just a statement that says, please consider this for a future budget year. That's an easy enough add. I would recommend not eliminating it entirely though, just so that there's continuity if we come back in fiscal year 25 and ask for it. But of course, this is your document. We will do whatever you all would like with it.
I think a combination of both of what you said, not removing it, because again, if we ask for it next year, they'd say, well, you didn't ask for it last year, but taking it out of the numbering system.
Sure.
So it's just a statement. We're not requesting anything. It's not numbered. That would be my recommendation. Gary, you're quiet.
I was thinking, which would have the most impact on the board is where we're trying to make the impact with this, right? Because the OMB already wants it in there. So we're trying to make the impact on the board, and by having it separate, it would seem to me we would be making a greater impact.
So this, just a reminder, this is our only opportunity at this time to kind of keep it on the radar.
Yes.
So I think when we met with our DMB analyst and all the efforts that went into this before COVID, that we kind of had the red light, or the green light, I should say, to go. I think we don't want to not keep it in our memo, because this is really the opportunity to keep it on their radar. I don't know when we would get another opportunity to, if we removed it, then we would have to kind of start again with,
Yeah. But we can certainly make the modifications that are requested. So instead of it being part of the bulleted list of specific asks, like Phil noted, it can be pulled out and put below that list. We can add in some language that we are requesting that this be included in the long-term budget plan so that it's clear that this is still something that will be requested. It's just not this fiscal year. And I can tighten this area up as well. We kept most of the language from last year that's a little bulkier. So we'd be happy to do that. Phil, you had also mentioned that if there are only 3 bullets, you want to make sure that there's 3 specific requests for money right now. That was just the number that staff had included. We can put as many things in here as you all would like. Staff had just identified these 3 areas as continuing needs, but there can be dozens of requests in there if you all would like. There can be no requests in there if you all like. There's no specific amount of numbers that there has to be.
This is a great conversation, by the way. I'm really enjoying it.
That's good.
I
Yeah. No one enjoys our fiscal meetings, so I'm glad.
No, this is good. We get a chance to shape some policy here. So I don't know what the rest of the letter looks like. Are we?
Oh yeah, that's about it. So at the very end, there is a blurb about, you know, the work that we're going to continue to do and who to contact, but this is the bulk of it. Yes. So.
Okay. So, I have 2 comments. Going back to number 1.
Got
I want to revisit Phil's suggestion that we put a dollar amount there. And I remember why we didn't last time, because it was, you know, a high number. But I think that they have to know that this is how far off we are also, because they might see a 3.2 million and say, you know, we can't afford that. But I mean, we're not even close. What about, are you guys going to be happy with 500,000? You know, or something like that, so that they know how far away we are, is my recommendation for that.
I like that.
So to fully fund the library's collection development budget, an additional 3.2 million would be necessary.
And-
However, FCPL could make great impact with 500,000.
Well, I don't know if I want to put a number there, and I'll open it up to the group here, the committee, but that was just something that just came to my mind, is like, if they felt like they wanted to move towards that goal because they have extra money, that perhaps they throw a number out.
I agree with Keith.
Okay.
Gary, is there any particular number or percentage that you think would have an impact?
No, I think he's right. If we're not trying to come up with a number, we're trying to show how far away we are from the ideal. And putting a number in there might be counterproductive.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
So however, any increase in funding could have a noticeable impact.
And one more thing, and I know, Phil, you might have an opinion on this. I want to get your opinion, but I think to make this number 1 more powerful, we might have to put in a sentence about the increase in electronic, or some type of statement about the increase in use or expenditures or whatever that value is, that shows that we've that a lot more people are using the library in more expensive ways, possibly.
Well, Keith, if there's some way to come up with that, I think that's a great idea.
I think another option could be to maybe ask for something over a period of time. So, you know, if you say, you know, it's an additional 3.2 million, if we could get, you know, 500,000 over a cost of 5 years, 6 years, at least. And, you know, at least we're giving them an opportunity to do it in less amounts over a period of time, and people are probably more primed to give you 500,000 than 3.2 million.
Yeah, and you also said that this document possibly plays into like a 5 or 6 year plan. Did I hear that earlier? Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's a 4-year cost out,
for
I
your.
heard that right? The long-term budget plan. Yeah,
So you're sort of saying that we'd like a certain amount that would be a down payment toward this ideal.
You know what's so interesting about that? The 3.2 million might be more based on where our budget is a year or two from here. So it's really a percentage, right? So we're constantly chasing a percentage, not necessarily the 3.2 million.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I will continue to wordsmith a little bit with this to include some kind of sentence around increased use of ebooks and stabilized use of print circ, and that with materials having long wait times, not investing in the collection is an equity or access issue, something around that.
I like that.
Yeah.
And I would say that last sentence while you're typing still is, if we could drop a percentage in there for that skyrocketing word,
Yes.
that would, I know it would impact me a little bit more.
I will pull the statistic from the last annual report because I know we have it in there.
Okay. And then, so Phil, is there any other comments for number 1 before I move on to number 2?
I got kind of
Or-
I have a few nitpicks, just so I don't disappoint people. Let's see. Where it talks about we'll continue to transfer all surplus. Shouldn't it be all surpluses from these things? We're not really transferring these things, we're transferring
Good catch.
surpluses from.
Edited. Got it.
Okay, all right. Actually, I had a question about number 2 as well. I didn't get in. What about the other agencies who have direct contact with the community? Do they have such professionals?
Some of them do. So there are a number of public-facing agencies, most of which are in the same deputy county executive group as the library. We are part of the Health, Housing, and Human Services Deputy County Executive Suite. So some of them do, and that includes Neighborhood and Community Services, which operates the county's community centers, teen centers, and senior centers. Although the majority of their social workers are doing coordinated services for the county, they're not on site for those centers. The county's Community Services Board employs social and behavioral health workers, and they operate like the Merrifield Clinic. So those are definitely necessary positions for the type of work that they do. But some of our other colleagues do not. The Park Authority is also included in our same region, and they do not, as far as I'm aware, employ social workers. And both the McLean and the Reston Community Center, I believe, do not, but they are also fairly small operations. So similar to the library, they lean on our colleagues in family services and the CSB to support when we need to have site-based work. So the CSB has an outreach team that specifically supports people who are either transient or have intermittent housing, and they will come out and help you assess and connect them with resources.
Would it help or hurt to put a little subtle reference to that?
I don't know. I can certainly add something in about that. I think there's enough on either side that it probably wouldn't flip it either way.
Okay, forget it then.
Yeah, and I should probably also mention these positions, these behavioral health specialists and social workers within the county are extremely hard to recruit for right now.
I was gonna
is-
ask that too.
Yeah, very, very, very difficult. The county, for some positions and within some agencies, allows for hiring signing bonuses. And behavioral health specialists and social workers are some that are eligible for that because there is such a draw for them across the multiple jurisdictions in the DMV, across healthcare services in schools, and it's very hard work. So the earlier that we can get something like this approved, you know, it might take a while to fill a job like this.
I would think, except for the police and the first responders in the fire department, we would have more contact with people with problems than any other agency.
We're definitely up there. There are some agencies where that is their job. So like the CSB,
Right.
No,
great
no,
example.
aside from them.
Yeah, the CSB, the police, the fire, and libraries in some ways suffer from the excellent PR that we have, because many people, when you think of a library, part of it is nostalgia and part of it is current usage. And because we welcome everyone in our facilities, that includes folks that may be having trouble in their lives and or maybe going through mental health challenges or may have some kind of crises that they need county assistance with. We do have high touch impact in our communities, and that can, yes, we are a good gateway for the community hearing.
And I think that type of position would be able to provide supports for those people in our branches if they would be interested in them. Some of them may not, but I think they would be able to have the clinical license to refer them to places within the county to support.
Agreed.
Okay, I have two more comments on number 2. I think that this is a serious need. So I have 3 thoughts about this. One is, Jessica, can you tell me why you can't repurpose one of your positions for something like this?
That is on the radar for if we can't get it funded. We
Okay.
have this. Okay, this is a
You
philosophical.
don't have to
point.
over-explain it. No, you
No,
don't have.
no,
because
no, it's
being recorded and everything else.
No,
and
it's
outside
fine.
of the realm.
This is
Okay.
totally fine to put out there, but it is this. The staffing contingent that we have is already pretty tight. And we have a lot of vacancies right now. So we certainly could look at reutilizing a position. That's not something our agency can do on its own. That has to be approved and coordinated through other county agencies, but it is certainly something we could recommend and may have to do at some point. However, this type of work is incredibly necessary and well documented as to that necessity. I think the county should consider adding a new position on top of what the library already has to support this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have 2 additional comments because I do think that this is very, very important. And this is in no particular order, but how come we're not requesting for 2 full-time positions? I mean, I just need to know the answer. And I mean, we're looking at $80,000, which is my third question is, we've done the research to know that that's enough for that position and everything else. Okay, good. So answer the second question. Do you think 1 will be adequate?
I don't know. So because we don't have this role within our agency now, it is unclear how much work this type of position will take on over time. If we find after getting 1 that it is drastically understaffed, that would be good cause, and we would have data to back up additional requests for more supportive staff.
Very good. Okay.
And I think I misled you slightly on the funding for this. The county has a class spec for a behavioral health specialist too. The dollar figure in here is for midpoint of that position, which is the top that the library can offer.
Okay. Thank you. I have no more questions right now. I yield the remainder of my time.
I have my usual nit. Actually, it's more of a question.
Sure.
In the first sentence there, are we requesting a FTE or are we just requesting the money for an FTE?
No, we are requesting an FTE. The county does not allow agencies to add additional FTEs or personnel numbers to our roster without approval by the Board of Supervisors. So we are requesting an FTE in that classification.
That's what I thought. So how about 1.0 FTE 4A?
Got it. Edited. Okay, Gary, have we passed muster?
Oh, we haven't gotten to 3 yet.
Well, 3 I'm gonna have to rework anyway to make it more clear that some language around the long-term budget plan and to kind of switch it down a little bit. But if you have additional amendments, I'd be happy to incorporate them now.
Oh, okay, the only thing is, when you're talking about the board, that's singular and you use they. It supports this they specifically requested. It should be it or the board.
Can you tell me what sentence that's in?
Oh, I'm the very. Be at the beginning, this is second sentence.
Okay. So you want it instead of they?
Yeah, or the board, whichever.
Got it.
And then the other question is that $875,000
Yes.
down there. Is that a known amount or is that an estimated amount?
That is a known amount. So that is the specific midpoint budget for the positions that we requested, as well as the 300,000 for the collection budget.
Okay. All right, then the last one, at the very end, you talk about post-pandemic levels.
Yes.
If you remember, President Biden got into lots of trouble because he said the pandemic was over.
Okay.
Because that means that all the emergency powers would disappear. In fact, we couldn't have this meeting virtually. So
Okay.
could we say something like authorized levels or something else other than admitting that the pandemic's over?
How about normal levels?
That's good.
Got it.
Okay.
Modified. Oh, and Keith, you may have noticed that we took the L out of your name. It just says Keith Fox now.
I just thought I gotta hire Gary too for some type of legal work.
Yes, Gary is amazing. Phil, I'm so sorry.
Listen, I'm still back that I would like that, we make a request for 5 items and move the number 3 down to number 5 and add 2 more things that we need. And I don't have any idea what they would be. But, in my mind, the county got all kind of government money. There's all kind of money laying around. And we ought to be putting our hand out to see where we can get as much as we could possibly get. So it's just my idea. So I would suggest the request technically for 4 and then leave the number 3 as 5 for the future reference.
That was one of my questions. Did the library staff have some alternate things that, okay.
No, we've been in an interesting budgetary place for the last couple of years because we've had enough personnel fallout. We've been able to fund moderate requests that have come through for like new rugs and furniture replacement and things like that. There are no additional big ticket items that immediately rise to mind, but Sandra and I have a meeting with the library's leadership team next week, Wednesday. We can noodle around on a little bit more. And if there are additional items, we can add it into the draft for discussion at your October board meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that. Yes, absolutely. Okay. If it is amenable for you all, what staff will do is we will, all the areas that are highlighted in yellow, there are some pieces that we need to go pull some data for inclusion. I will send this draft back around to you all, including the stats about ebook usage, the number of incidents and required intervention. We will play around with the formatting a little bit, and we'll take a look and see if there are any other specific items to add to the request list. And I'll send you a copy of all that, and it will be included in your board packet for October for hopeful discussion and then approval. Does that sound good?
Yeah, and just a request, I guess. When is the first time we get to try to sell this? Like, we meaning outside of you guys submitting to DMB?
So we will submit this to the county budget offices on October 14th,
13th or
whatever it is,
14th,
13th
right?
or 14th. After that, if you all would like, that is an opportunity for you all to start talking to your elected officials about what was submitted. It's
Mhm.
not anything that the county executive pulled together yet. It's not anything that the county has bundled together, but you can certainly start talking up specific things like increasing the collection development budget. So that if it is not included in the advertised budget, you'll have already primed your elected officials on something that is necessary, and you may want to punt or pitch a little bit more for it to be re-included.
Okay, very good. Okay,
Okay, I think you're
Anything-
all wrapped, and that was everything on your agenda.
all right, very good. The time is 3:54, so I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, very good.